This guy.
You are live.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, welcome Town of Groveland Planning Board meeting on Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, 7 PM at Town Hall. We have our agenda here. Let's bring the meeting to order. Motion to open.
So motion.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. All right, we're going to move the agenda, move this first agenda item down to the bottom, the reorganization of the board. We have plenty of members here from the community to discuss a couple topics here. So the first one up is 6 Homestead Lane. We can kind of merge the two. 6 Homestead Lane tree removal. Request from the homeowner to remove trees within the no-cut zone, and then 7 Homestead Lane tree removal, request from the homeowner to remove trees within the no-cut zone. So with this here, you guys have in your packets, there's an estimate from Socorro, is that how you pronounce it, Socorro? Socorro, for a removal of, with crane, numerous dead ash trees behind the fencing. There's about 20 of them, and also to remove a choke cherry tree with significant lean. This quote is back from November, so not sure if it doesn't really matter what the cost is, but if that's still the case, and there are pictures here of a tree 1 that has, and tree 2, that have already fallen, I think between the time, that was down in May, so from November to now, there's a couple trees that have already fallen. One of them here, you can see, has damaged the fence, fell into the yard. So obviously, there are some dead trees within that, the boundary of the no-cut zone. So the homeowners are here to request. We have a letter on the back. If you look at the back of the agenda sheet, you can see that there's a request from Ms. Pelkey, Jameson and Kelly Pelkey, outlining our covenant. We're requesting the planning board to approval to remove the 14 dead trees in our buffer zone at 6 Homestead Lane. Recently, the 2 trees had fallen, concerned about safety of the children in the backyard. Large trees landed, caused damage to the fence we just all went over with. So their intention is to preserve as much privacy screening as between the neighbors as possible. And feel necessary to remove the dead trees. Our request is to remove them when the leaves are down. I've attached a document showing the trees, requested removal. Individual photo files were large, but can send separately, which we have. We have tagged the trees and should the planning board want to do an on-site visit. So, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Something about tagging the trees, I didn't know.
We have tagged the trees that should the planning board want to do an on-site visit.
And privacy screen, what was
That they want to preserve as much privacy screening as possible.
that?
Yeah. Okay.
So who's here from each group? We're 6? Okay.
I'm 6.
You're 6 and
I'm
7?
second.
Okay. And is Mark here? Your arborist?
No.
No, okay, on that. Because I'll start on this because I'm very familiar with it. I was hoping to meet with Mark a couple of times. I was out there. We saw, there's definitely dead trees out there. They do have to come out, but what I don't see yet is what we talked about. Have you got a tree planting?
Yes, you haven't met with him, right?
No, I called him and waited. I know him, he's a nice guy. He's certainly qualified, but no, I have not met with him with a tree plan, for replanting. The dead stuff is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
It's gotta come down.
The damage that's done, that one that's
Right.
referenced there, the
It's-
cherry, that's the one that's fallen and damaged the fence and.
Jameson,
almost the
just
house.
1 second. Just as you're speaking, I need you to, so that people can hear you at home, online. So if you want to go up to the microphone, or I have a loose microphone you can have as well, if you would rather just sit there.
I'll go up there, it's fine.
No, not yet.
It's like the old days, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Just make sure that the light is green for yourself, so we can hear you. Just push that, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, like you said, you're waiting to meet with them. That hasn't happened.
Right.
You have the pictures there. Our big
There's
thing.
no doubt. There's no doubt. On the site inspection, it was very clear there's a lot of dead trees that are in there. And we talked, when I was out there, that the plan was to do a replanting, get these out, the dead stuff out, and then, plant them out, just figure out where they're gonna be going, and maintain that buffer strip. So that's what's.
I have a
that's what's
question.
missing on
I have
that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where is is there a requirement for replanting? If there is, was there some agreement made? I'm not aware of either of those things.
So when the subdivision was built, okay, this was all treed area, okay, that was coming in. And it was to be maintained, a 30-foot buffer zone between the two streets, okay? And that's a mandatory item, and what we do now, and you'll see it on some of those streets, is we put those, Brad's familiar with these, with the granite bounds, with the conservation plaques on them that says no one shall pass with a chainsaw. And that's the buffer zone.
No,
There's monuments to
I understand
nothing, yeah.
that piece. I understand
Yeah.
that. I've heard about that as
Yeah.
well. But what I'm specifically asking about is dead tree happens, dead tree falls, dead tree needs to be removed, obviously.
Yeah.
Where is the requirement for the homeowner to replant?
Well,
Is
the
it,
homeowners-
was it in this situation something that was agreed, that there's some sort of agreement between homeowner and town? Or is there something in a deed that says you have to? Or, where is I just want to know what the obligation is and where it comes from.
So the obligation is in the decision to maintain the buffer zone, and that was passed on to, should have been passed on to all the property owners at the time, and it's in the decision.
In the decision,
Yeah.
did,
Memorandum of decision.
Mr. Kelly, do you have a copy, happen to have a copy of covenant? I thought we had one at one time. I don't have it with me. Do you have a?
It was sent to you. I don't have it on me right now,
I
no.
might be able to
Yeah.
pull it up, but I'm under the
Yeah,
understanding.
they already agreed to it. So,
Well,
take
hold
out
on.
the trees and put it on.
Chair?
I'm under the understanding that within the covenant, it says nowhere in the covenant that any trees that are removed have to be replaced.
Correct.
There's nothing in there that states that if a dead tree is cut down, the removal of any tree has to come through the planning board,
Right.
which is what's going on. But there's nothing in the covenant that says if you're removing X amount of trees or whatever it is, it does not require the homeowner to.
Then what would
plant new
maintain the buffer zone? And we did this on Stonebridge,
Yeah, but trees just,
but we're talking about removing stuff, and there has to be a buffer zone. But they are planning on planting trees, so.
We've already tried in there and have failed with that.
But that's at the go.
Here's the
that's-
problem.
but
So hold
that's
on,
at-
hold on,
Wait a
hold
minute,
on.
wait. That's at their own goodwill and what they
Yeah.
want to do. We cannot force them to put any additional trees in there. It's not in the covenant, it's not the planning
It's-
board's
Was
bylaws.
the original subdivision plan was to have a 30-foot buffer zone, and it was divided up amongst the properties. So if the property owner's later passing with the deeds, it runs with the land. The whole decision runs with the land. So common sense says, if you're gonna take out a buffer zone, you gotta put something in place.
yeah, but don't trees just naturally grow in 30 years, and don't they buffer
Well,
themselves?
that's a good question. How many survive to pull it out? I don't know. I haven't been out there in a year.
The dead ones are the dead ones.
Well,
Yeah.
I-
obviously.
Those are
yeah.
I encourage you to come out right now to look, because it's pretty telling when you're out there.
Yeah, if-
Because of all the trees that are alive and essentially the buffer that puts between our neighborhood and the one below us, there's
Well, then we
plenty of
should-
coverage.
Since we get two of you next door, we should be doing a site visit then on that, and see if we can
This is our
arrange.
fourth or fifth meeting
I
on
know,
a couple
it
of
is.
dead trees.
And I think it's pretty straightforward, that if you wanna take some
Well-
stuff out, on that, you put some stuff back. and we-
Well, not if there's not, we can't force them to if there's not an obligation. And so it's got to come from somewhere, and it's not because I said so. We're not the board that says we're going to force the citizens of Groveland to
buffer
do
zone
stuff.
was set up in the
Hang on,
memorandum of
I'm not
decision.
done talking. Don't interrupt me, please. I'll give you time to talk when you're speaking, but don't interrupt me when I'm talking. If I'm going to vote for something, to force somebody to do something, there's going to be a document of some sort, a bylaw, a deed, a planning board decision, some sort
There's a-
of basis. Let me finish, please. There's going to be a basis for it, and it's not just going to be because I said so or because someone on the board said so. So to that point, my questions are now, where is that information, if anywhere? DJ, you say you're not aware of any spot.
I'm looking up to see if I can find the covenant, if it's in any email attachments, to be able to read through it to see. Because it's spelled out it should be spelled out in the covenant. So that's what I'm looking.
We're not gonna,
Thought we had it in here.
we're not gonna rule on this board just because I said so. We're gonna have reasons for it, and they're gonna be reasons that are supported by documentation, so that if someone comes back and says, I'm not happy with this, we didn't just say, well, just because we said so. That's
Okay.
not what we're not permitted, that goes beyond our authority.
to the junior member of the board that wasn't present during this memorandum of decision and all
I've
the
been here
hearings that we've had.
at every meeting
all the
in a
hearings
year.
that we've
You
had.
have
What did you
some
say about
stones to say.
interrupting? Okay, all the
right,
hearings
Luce,
that we
have a point
had
over
on
here.
this, okay, there was a buffer zone, and it was put in place, it was agreed to, it was in the memorandum of decision, okay?
I'd ask you,
And-
I'd ask you to produce it so we can see it.
Okay,
So we can
well,
look at it.
that's in the planning board files that we can get. However, I
Let's do
see
that.
your point, but these people were also present for those hearings, okay? And they can point it out. Well, we're not trying to cause a ruckus here.
No, we're not.
However-
No, we're not.
However,
We-
you have to understand when this took place and what was going on in there. And there's still a few issues in there, but we've come to a conclusion here that the dead trees do have to be removed. Conservation, you pitch it to them, they approved on that. I definitely see it, that it has to come down. Whether they offered to do it voluntarily, the buffer zone has got to be maintained somehow. They're
Well,
all in good, hold on,
we-
they're all in good faith to put this stuff up, okay? And you're right, as time goes by, things die out, some other things come in. However, the buffer zone has to be maintained, and it will run with the land with, it's not necessarily a covenant, but it's in the memorandum of decision.
Well, okay, so,
And if we want to go
If-
back and look at all the minutes, you're going to see it in there, and that's probably.
well, we need to see it in the
too.
official
But do we have to
documentation.
go that far?
We certainly do, because
No,
we're
we don't.
going to be setting precedent.
We're not.
For everyone
The-
that's got everybody's that's got a dead
Precedent was
tree.
set with Stonebridge, with bounds and
Gentlemen.
monuments, so this doesn't happen.
Yes, Chair.
You know?
I don't think we need to get into it that deep.
I don't think so
I,
either.
I think that,
I want to hear what the proposal is for both
Hold on a
parties, and it may
second.
solve
Wally,
it.
You guys. I'm good friends with an arborist, and I know, I'm not an arborist, but you can't plant a small tree underneath the canopy of big trees. They'll die.
Right.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
We've done that years ago. We planted a bunch of arborvitaes that didn't make it more than, not even a year. In that area.
For hemlocks or something like
You
that,
s-
of a
It
small
doesn't matter,
variety?
arborvitaes and hemlocks are just about the same plant.
Yeah. So what is the plan for both lots? Let's hear that. We got one, I see that.
You'd almost have to cut down the trees to replant the trees.
Well, then we gotta, then it makes sense to go out and do
I
a
think-
site
I
visit.
think we've all been out there.
I haven't been out there with a tape to maintain 30 feet, except that one time
I
where we
mean-
found things.
That's fine. I invite you
You're
to
not
come
a
out.
surveyor either,
No,
so
I'll
you
come
don't know
out.
where the lot line is.
No, we actually just wagged it, but they put it out. They know where it is. So what's your plan?
I have one that's in the buffer zone and the rest are on my property, and I'm just basically here as a courtesy and notifying.
Okay, so the dead trees, that's no problem. I mean, they gotta come down or they're gonna kill somebody, and we already knew that. but-
And the plan for that is in the fall, right?
Yeah,
That's
so
what
that-
we recommended, if you guys are on
still,
board with
it's still the
that.
fall, right?
As long as you guys are on board with that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a no-brainer.
How many documented dead trees are there?
Well, they're gonna tag them.
20.
They're all dead?
There are, within the estimate, there are,
Are you an
we're
arborist?
going by an arborist, and listen, we're
Going
not,
by an arborist.
we're not gonna go back and forth. You don't have a microphone, we can't go back and forth like this. We're going by an estimate that we received from a tree service. It has a certified arborist. It says exactly what they're going to do with a crane. There's numerous dead ash trees behind the fence. There's about 20 of them. They don't even have a request to kill all 20, right? I think a couple fell down, but you have 14 of them that you're not even taking all 20, it's 14.
Is that still there, or did you guys clean that up?
Can I come up there and look at it?
Yeah, that's,
It's the one on the fence, right?
I mean, I would say that's,
Yeah, I cleaned it out.
okay, good. Yeah, good.
It's in the middle of my backyard.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
so-
no, sure.
I would hope you would with that.
So, I mean, as far as the dead trees, I'd like if someone would
Move.
entertain a motion to accept the removal of
And you
dead
said you gotta do
trees.
it in the fall?
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Whenever, I mean, for me, they're dead trees.
Yeah.
He's already had one come down in his backyard and land on a fence and cause
Yeah,
property
this is-
damage.
this is
I don't
safety.
care if he did them
Yeah,
tomorrow.
that's
I don't care if he
an
does
easy
it
thing.
tomorrow. I don't want another
Yeah.
tree falling on top of a.
Yeah.
Safety
on
now.
top-
Right,
We're not gonna
100%.
Hold them up for that.
Yeah,
I fly a motion that they were allowed to take down the dead trees per the licensed arborist, per the estimate.
I'll
Yeah, I'll
second
second
that motion.
And I'll amend saying that because there's the one choke cherry tree that is going to die anyway, right? That's what it's called out for.
That's the one that came down that did the damage
Oh,
that's
it
already
did, okay,
been
so it's already done.
cut up and
Okay,
removed.
all right. So,
And I would just like, part of this discussion, the arborist did say that the trees that appear to be alive that are diseased, especially since they still have leaves and stuff and they look alive, the disease and the rot that's occurring at the base or throughout the tree because of the ash borer beetle doesn't necessarily mean that it looks like the tree is dead, but it is dying, and it will die and it will fall.
poses a risk to fail.
And that's what the arborist had pointed out.
And just to be clear, and anyone can come over and take a look, these trees that are marked that are dead, there's not one leaf on any of them. They are dead.
No, I was out there, there were a lot of, on,
So-
no, there on both
so
sides, there was a couple,
that-
but,
There's been
let's see,
a
we'll find out.
motion,
Hold on.
there's been a motion,
Hold
there's
on,
been a
hold on,
motion,
hold on.
there's been a motion made, seconded, to accept the homeowner's request to remove the dead trees within the no-cut zone. The arborist, at the arborist, professional opinion, there's, like I said, there's 20 of them, they're requesting, I think it was 14, right?
Yep.
At that, so, motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Wait, did you have public input? That's what they're here for. They're here.
There's no public, there's nothing to speak about the cutting down of dead trees.
The other stuff I want to know about, though, on the.
The other aspect of what we're talking about with water runoff and situation like that, that is a separate situation than the cut of dead trees. I know, and I know that people at home can't hear, but
You're not gonna let us say what we need to say?
about,
I have some comments.
about cutting down dead trees, no, there's nothing to discuss.
There's more to it than that.
We go by there's a covenant, there is an estimate here from a professional arborist that says that there's 20 removed trees, 20 dead trees that can be removed. There has been a tree that's already fallen down, and for the safety of the homeowner, and the board is about to vote, and it's up to the board to make that determination whether we should cut down those dead trees. I mean,
We're on the record that
there's-
we're not gonna be allowed to speak on this matter.
Well, I think you get a separate thing. This is on the dead trees, okay? And I do want to hear about what's been going on out there, and I do want to hear what proposal is from Mark or anybody else on the trees.
What you're doing right now, and I'm not here.
Well, it's not the cut zone for anything live, and conservation had to sign off on this too.
Why won't you let us speak?
Well, you're gonna be able to speak on that.
About this, about your vote, your item.
Well, let them speak on it. I mean,
Hey,
you get a
hey, DJ.
motion and seconded, but.
DJ, would you like to give the people a few minutes to speak on the issue, just so everybody says their piece, and we'll still vote, we'll table the motion that's on the,
We can table.
Yeah.
And the reason why there's really not much, this has been going on for 2 years in front of us, and we've already heard,
Going on for 10 years for us.
10 years.
but your situation is talking about the drainage and the damage of the water runoff. Cutting of dead trees does not factor into that.
You don't wanna hear it.
You don't have to
Well-
table anything, just say discussion, and then you can take.
well,
So if one of you would like to get up and speak to
I
it?
would thank you.
Okay.
sure.
My name is Craig Weaver, I live at 25 Cannon Hill Avenue, and I'd like to thank the folks that are here tonight that are abutters to some proposed projects that are coming up. They're curious as to what's gonna happen when they hear words like buffer zone, water runoff studies, and what's in the future for them and how they're gonna be treated. So I think we have a pretty good idea. There's people watching on the cable, there's people here tonight. So
We'll leave the microphones off, sorry.
when they see,
Can you make sure that's green?
You gotta make sure it's green.
when they see words like buffer zone, and for those who weren't on the board back then, there's already been 20 or 30 trees illegally cut up there before this, okay, which you're not aware of. We're currently having erosion and water runoff issues, which Mr. Sorensen can validate. He went up there and studied them. All the trees that are marked up there right now aren't even close to dead. I have done tree work. I do know what I'm talking about. And the young gentleman here that's my neighbor His father has told us straight out that the intention is to clear cut that. And that's exactly what's going on. I think his exact words were, "It's all going choppy choppy," to me and my wife when we were out in the yard working. So the intention is to clear cut it. Now, as far as the fence goes, the tree fell on a fence that was illegally moved into the buffer zone by the previous owner of the house. The town was notified of that and took no action. There's supposed to be a 30-foot buffer zone. That fence is at least a good 20 feet into the buffer zone. They moved the fence into the woods and then cut all the trees around the backside of it towards the house. Okay? So you may not be aware of what's going on. This is not the first time trees have been cut up here. Okay? And we informed them as they were cutting them the first time, hey, this is a no-cut zone. I basically got the bird. Okay? And I've been informed, like I said, by the young gentleman's father, the intention is to clear cut that. They're going to cut everything up there, and they're just going to keep coming back to the board and saying, oh, this tree's dangerous, that tree's dangerous. We got to cut this 20, we got to cut this 15. We have to cut this, we have to cut that. In the meantime, our water issues are getting worse and worse. Those are not dead trees that are all marked up there. There's several of them that are dead, but there's 20 trees marked up there.
Do you have an arborist that is willing to say that those trees aren't dead?
All you have to do is walk over there.
I'm asking about, so again, for me, a lot of this is about proof, and people will say things that are in their own self-interest, of course, and, you know, it's our job to, to look at this in a balanced way and say, okay, well, what's good for Groveland, what's good for setting, a precedent for what would happen anywhere, right? So if they come and they say, we have an expert that came in and said, these are dead trees, and you say, no, they're not. Like, okay, do you have an expert that says these trees are alive? I mean, understand, help the board if you want to say they're alive. It can't just be because I said so. We're looking for proof here.
Because you've got eyes and you can see a living tree.
But you don't know if it has root crown rot, like Jason
Right.
said, if it's got a borer, if it's diseased, if it's gonna come
And
down.
most of them
We're
are maples, they're not even ash trees.
Let me finish first. We were actually relying on somebody that has a license, and his license number is on the quote. I don't think as a professional licensed individual, he's just gonna take down the trees for the hell of it.
So
I think this guy's been, Sikora's been around for a long time.
I would like to let the resident finish.
Yeah, sure.
And then we can have our discussion after.
Okay.
Okay,
Have
no,
something to say, and then we can go. from there.
basically, I wanted the people that have upcoming projects to be able to see how things are gonna go for them. There is no-cut zones. There is no buffer zones. There was an agreement way back when the developer was supposed to replant that. And his bond was released before he completed the task. So he squared it out from under it, because he overcut. And if you look in the minutes, that was supposed to happen, that never happened. The folks up on the hill were supposed to replace what they cut, and there was a lot of live trees cut up there. I have pictures, and I have the police report because we called the police to come down when it was
Well,
done.
Again, we're talking about a narrow issue today. We're talking about these 14 trees. And so, I mean, I understand there's some history and there's some things, and, there may be plenty of opportunities to speak about those various things, but
We haven't, though.
today isn't the day to have a referendum on everything. We're talking about these 14 trees. They're saying they're dead, and they're saying, they're saying, hey, we hired an arborist. This is the person. He's saying it's dead. You're saying they're not, but just look at them isn't the kind of proof that would refute what at least somebody who's putting their license on the line would say. So if you could keep your comments tailored to this particular issue, these 14 trees, that would be super.
I'm disputing whether those trees are dead and dying. Yes,
Great.
I am.
I heard you.
And all someone has to do is take a walk out there.
I'm sorry.
It's a simple thing,
No, I get you.
okay? Someone from the board walks over, looks up. I have pictures on me right now. Those are not all dead trees. And the object has been, since the beginning, to clear cut that, and it's happening.
Craig, the only thing you can prove is get an arborist. Your word,
I don't think anybody wants to hear it. I think they're going to allow that to be clear cut. Nothing's going to be planted back in there. Our water issues will continue to get worse and worse because of all the live growth. And it's not just those dead trees that have been taken out. All the undergrowth has been cut. All the saplings have been cut up there. and none of it has been done with approval. You've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
I-
It looks like a sidewalk up there.
I haven't been up there recently, but I do want to go. Can you get a hold of Mark? See what his schedule is?
I had him, I had not him, but one of his employees here today, I called for an estimate, and he came out and right away, and so.
You're still working with him,
They're
right?
available.
With Mark?
We were waiting for you to get in touch with him to be able to come out.
Yeah, I called him
That's
twice.
Yeah, so that's where
So-
we're
Sir, did you have anything,
from my,
are you good?
I guess I'm done. I just wanted the folks
understood.
with upcoming developments and
Understood.
perspective to see how things are gonna go for them down the line. This
And I'm-
is what's
and I'm-
gonna happen to you.
And I'm going to address that. I just want to,
Okay.
I wanted to let you finish.
All right, but we still haven't addressed, it's been 10 years, we still haven't addressed the water runoff issues. It was a
Understood.
bone of contention, and if you're aware, I don't know if you were on the board back then, every single abutter to that project signed a petition saying that the town was not doing anything to prevent water runoff from this development, and they never did, and exactly what we told them was gonna happen, happened, and nothing's been addressed. You don't wanna know how much money and time I've spent trying to mitigate this on my property. Christine came down the other day, and it's just blatant. It looks like a sled run coming down the side of my yard from the washout.
There is erosion up there.
Understood.
I can see that.
Well, right, and
And it's
this,
been
this board,
documented.
this
That's
board is sympathetic to, a more global discussion about this, right, at some point. But that's not what today is for specifically. We are certainly, I don't think anyone on the board would oppose talking about the greater issues at a later date. These trees aren't coming down until the fall. So there's time between now and then. And, we don't want to be, perceived as stifling, discussion and whatnot. We're the opposite of that. We want to hear what's going on. But right now, today, we have a
Now
very
you
narrow.
have some history.
No,
what's been going on.
and frankly, I've been to some meetings where this has been discussed, so I do have a little bit of background on it. But that doesn't have anything to do with this issue of what we're talking about, these 14 dead trees.
And if it was
that
just
could-
dead
that
trees,
could
I
fall
wouldn't
on-
have an
on tree-
objection, but it's not.
Understood, but
If someone wants to walk out there and look,
I'm gonna call Mark as soon as.
well, there are pictures there are pictures
I
here,
have
and
pictures on me right now.
Yeah,
of
we have.
live trees.
I'll go out there, because,
okay,
we talked.
All right.
So
All right.
that's,
Yeah.
I got it.
agree.
All right, I guess I'm done.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Christina Manicus, 24 King Street. You have said numerous trees in 20 and 14. What does the arborist say as far as the number of dead trees?
There are about 20 on the arborist. On the arborist report here, it says that there are about 20 of them
20 of them what?
that are dead.
It says it right there.
Numerous,
You
there
have-
Right here.
remove numerous dead
ash
ash
trees.
trees behind the fence.
There are about 20.
There are about 20.
You have that
Yeah.
in writing.
We have that in writing.
Okay.
Also remove one choke cherry tree with a significant lean into decay, and that is the tree that has already fallen
Yeah.
that damaged the fence.
Okay.
But the applicant has requested only 14 to be removed, not 20.
Okay. So that's what this is for. You're going to be voting on
14
removal of
14
14
trees.
dead trees.
14 dead
Right.
trees, ash trees.
I'm not going to go, I just have maybe a minute to say something. I think the issue is what a no-cut zone is. It protects wildlife, it prevents storm damage, it provides flood control, it prevents erosion, it stops damage caused by wind and water. And my concern is 25 Cannon Hill has experienced substantial erosion subsequent to the construction of Homestead Lane, and it hasn't been remedied, and it should have been remedied by now. And I hope you address this quickly. They've got a hell of a problem there at 25 Cannon Hill, and it's not right. Whoever developed that property, I don't know who it was, they should have restored it to pre-development conditions, and they didn't do it. And one of the gentlemen who lives on Homestead Lane said the neighbors below us. That's key. They are below Homestead Lane, and they're paying the price for that development. And I'm concerned about that. It's tormenting them. There really should be no impact post-construction, and cutting too many trees will cause more water to end up on their property. So if you could set an agenda item to discuss that, I think it would cause less stress. And I ask that you do the right thing and stop the erosion problem on their property. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So
Anybody else?
before I open the motion back up. I wanted to just address, it's not a back and forth, it's just a conversation. We had talked about, you had mentioned there are people here that are concerned about the future and what a buffer zone is and the no cut zone. And you're right. This development was done well before my time here. It was established long before I was here. That's one of the reasons why Wally was the one that was going to connect with you guys and work with you, because he had been here, he's been here the longest and he was part of the subdivision plan. But in the future, going forward, I know we have Ann Lane, and on the backside of where, we have 181R School Street subdivision that we're doing. That's my first subdivision that I'm a part of. There is a buffer zone being in place. There is an HOA that I feel like we've learned from our mistakes, and we're going to make sure that the language is written the proper way to preserve no-cut zones in the future and not have that, like you said, the fence was put in by a previous owner, and I don't know if it's only 10, you said it was 20 feet, it's a 30-feet buffer zone. You said it was 20 feet over the buffer zone, so that would put it only 10 feet from your lot line in comparison, right? So, yeah, you're right, should have never happened, but there was a misstep there, and that is what our duty is to make sure things like that don't happen. And as long as I'm here, then you follow the letter of the law and you do what you're supposed to do and what you feel as though is right. That's how I work. But most of us were not here when any of these things were done, and it's disappointing. Your erosion problem. I know I got an email yesterday. I just replied back today because, family just getting things back together. I'm going to meet with you and talk to you about the erosion problem. I don't know what it is we can do. You're right. It was mishandled, right? It should have been handled years ago. But we'll work through that part of it. This part, as far as the ash trees we all know, anyone in Groveland knows, if you have ash trees, they have a life cycle. They last 5 years, 6 years. I think we all probably have an ash tree in our backyard that's just dead, right? They die early. They don't survive. That's why we don't even allow them to be planted anymore, right? That's not even allowed anymore. But as far as this situation for this request, that's what we're working on. The erosion, I know that this has been ongoing for years, and it's unfortunate, but I will do everything in my power to help you and guide you and give you whatever type of support that the planning board can give, and recommend it to our zone, whether it's the zoning, whether it's the select board, whatever it is, I'll help you with that, and as put you in contact with whomever or be there for you, because that's just the kind of person I want to help, right? That's why we're here. That's what the whole purpose of all this is. But I just wanted to let you know, in the future, for future subdivisions, you're on King Street, right? There's a subdivision up there. Again, before my time, there's cut zone. There's all different things that had happened well before my time. I am not aware of it. The language has already been in there. There's really nothing I can do about that, or the planning board can do about it at the time. Going forward, all I can do is promise, say, I'm going to do my best to follow the letter of the law and make sure that everything is accounted for and learn from our mistakes. So I just want to let you guys know that is from where I stand as the chair. But for this agenda item and this request, I'm going to open it back up.
Just one other thing for general knowledge. What was the date on the cease and desist? June of 17? June of 17, a cease and desist order was issued by the Conservation Commission to stop cutting in the
Yeah, it was definitely a
buffer
coming
zone.
problem.
Okay.
So,
I
I can get into that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, and
Thank you.
And to the chair's point, I would invite you to look at some of the board meetings that they're on YouTube. You can see what we're doing, and you can watch how concerned we are about runoff. Runoff is a huge issue. We just had a subdivision. We spent a lot of time back and forth with developers, making sure to, changing plans and doing various things to very specifically address, hey, this is going to be a better drainage situation than it was before, right? And, you know, having the professionals come in and stand in and say, yes, we think this is gonna be even better than it was pre-development. So we're always very mindful of that. This is a huge concern in our town. We're aware of it, and as we go forward, and the proof's in the pudding. Go look at the tapes, and you'll see that we care. You'll see what
we've heard for 10 years was, sucks to be you.
well, that's not what this board says.
And I'm sorry that that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When will the drainage thing be discussed? Will it be discussed at a board meeting?
We can do that personally, we can make it,
Gotta get
we can,
conservation in on that one too, because it's kind of their bailing work on that, and they do have a history with this subdivision.
Mr.
Well-
Sorensen's seen it.
Oh, it's there, there's erosion there for sure.
we'll,
Your
we'll,
stormwater changed over the years too, you know?
Some of it, you
we
can see.
we
where it
can,
started and just-
we could put it on the next agenda, but I would want to make sure that everything that I need, I had prior to have, and then have a proper discussion about it. I don't want to just throw it on there, but the agenda items only have to be,
Looking, guys.
We mentioned.
we need to post the agenda, I think, 48 hours prior, right? So typically, it's by Friday, it's submitted to the clerk, and it's done and ready for Tuesday. So it can be done just prior to that. But I would want to make sure that just have communication with the homeowners and go from there. And then we can see if there needs to be discussion here, what the planning board has for any type of authority we have upon it, or if it has to be pushed to whether it go talk to the select board or figure it out. I don't, that's why I want to make sure all the ducks are in a row before I just. Absolutely. That's, like I said, I sent in the email that I sent tonight saying that we'll have a discussion and we'll meet and we'll try to figure it out.
I don't know if that cease and desist has any effect on what we're talking about now.
Part of it to a point, I was there for that, so I know what you're talking about, but I'll brief the board on that. But we do have a live, you gonna bring that motion up?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we have to go through with that motion and then set another hearing, another date for all the erosion, and I think we ought to get conservation in on this, because they do have a good file on this, and they know what's been going on. Well, there was a couple. There was one that was cutting, and then there was one that took over, and another one that purchased it at the end. That's where all the issues happened, because there was a finished
So
checklist.
let's say, because that's a whole
That's
separate
the other
conversation.
discussion.
And I want to have that properly, and we can do our research and all that stuff. We'll do all of that, and that's why I don't want to say, let's just put it on the next agenda. We'll get all our ducks in a row so we can have a proper discussion. So we can open up the request for the removal of the trees. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. I'll open it up to all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you. I understand the frustration, and I'm sorry that this has been so long and ongoing for you as the homeowner. You had a tree come down, if your kids were in the yard and someone got hurt, I have 3 young kids, I would be livid, right? So, and as the abutters who have drainage problems from the get-go of a subdivision, unacceptable. And that's something that we got to work for, because it shouldn't be that way, right? It should have been remedied from the beginning, it shouldn't have to deal with 20 years later, whatever it was. I don't know when the house was built, and now we're on the 3rd owner of the home of the subdivision. It's significant time has passed, and it's unfortunate, but like I said, I'll help out however I can to get it to the next level.
It's not just the trees that are there now, the ones that they're claiming are dead, they've gone in and cleaned out all the saplings, all the.
Well, again,
all the
You can see,
growth
well-
in there.
So,
Yeah, we can bring that up.
yeah, this is definitely, there will be a time to discuss
This is
it.
related to what's going on right now, though.
Well, no, those aren't the dead trees that we just approved to.
no, but
Yeah.
you're talking prior, and we had a like I said, this has been going on
Yeah.
for couple years now. Are the original, the current owners had made some cuts, didn't realize, because when we all buy homes, you have this deed and you're signing away, and they were told, hey, in order to be able to cut, you need to come in front of the board and you need to do, and we got an email, we got an apology. Going forward, this is what we'd like to do. Now we have an arborist quote, and this is the way we like to do it. So now they're in the know, and hopefully the surrounding areas are also, I think there's a lot that's, should be your neighbor on the other side. They have a 30-foot cut zone as well. So I would assume now everybody knows in the neighborhood that that is a thing. But we will do our due diligence, and you're right, it's a matter of the follow-through, of making sure it happens. So,
That's it?
that's it, yeah.
Yeah, so, and that was the procedure, that was put in place, they went to conservation, they came here, but I know the history of this, and I know that I saw the erosion, I can brief the board and the other stuff later. Okay, there's a couple of things that we'll bring up, and I think that's good to bring this back in for the erosion control and the other stuff. I still wanna meet with Mark, I got this, I'll call him again and get out there, because he said he's gonna tag him anyway, so.
And
Anyone's
as,
welcome anytime.
Yes.
I've got
As
no
far
problem
as-
there with anyone and look at things.
as far as the
I'm not
cut,
hiding anything.
as far as the cutting, I know that it says here that, I mean, this is from last November, and one has already fallen in between, and it says that you plan on waiting until the leaves fall, and then you're cutting. There was no decision made here that you have to wait until the fall to do it. If there are dead trees and there's a safety concern, you're allowed to cut the ones that have been marked out.
The ones that have been marked
You are
out.
allowed to cut them down tomorrow, right? That is accepted. So I just wanted to let you know, it's not something you have to wait, and all of a sudden you have a severe storm or something, and you have another issue. So I just wanted to let.
When did that tree come down, May, you said?
May, that's the other May.
It's May, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's as to 6, have we talked about 7 in any substantive way? We haven't made,
Yeah, that's-
we haven't made any motion
He
about
just said he had
7.
one on,
He has one, yeah. And I mean, we can,
So I think we have
Because-
to make a separate motion about that, right?
you have just the
Yep.
one dead tree, you said,
There's one
In the cut zone.
in the buffer?
So I have remaining other trees that are. close
You had a
to my-
picture of that or anything like that, or is that?
Of the one tree.
Yeah.
It's this big.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
2-inch caliber.
Should we
So,
vote a motion
yeah,
for the
yeah,
2-inch caliper dead tree?
Sure.
Okay. So motioned?
Second.
Lot
second.
7.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
I appreciate
And we'll
it.
be in
You're
touch
more than
on that.
welcome
I'll call
to
Mark.
stay and
He'll see
listen
me
the
out
rest of the
there.
way.
I'll be out there too, looking at, again, at the erosion. I saw it before, I saw it all. I got pictures and everything like that too. See if you can get out there. Okay.
You'll see me before you'll see Mr. Storenson.
I was planning tomorrow, so, so we'll see.
Oh, TJ's
'Cause I got a
going
very
tonight.
short window.
With a headlamp.
I got a very short window out there.
He happens to be
So-
on vacation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All
All
right.
right, 301.
Yes. All right, next up, 301 Main Street, Stock Construction. Acknowledge receipt of documentation required per the 2023 decision. So,
You're at 301? We got it.
hello, how are you? Patient?
Good. That's the best way to be.
Took a little while for your DOT to go through, huh?
No, DOT wasn't the problem, it was conservation. Turned around and told me that we didn't need conservation, then we found out we needed conservation.
Ah.
Another $10,000 worth of money to turn around and throw at that.
Okay.
So what's the,
So should we have
I got a
him
picture
come
of
up?
that somewhere. On it? No.
DJ, should we have him?
Yeah.
Come up?
Well, I mean, unless
Just
he
acknowledging the
has,
receipt?
yeah, this is just acknowledging.
Okay.
It's not
Okay.
really, yeah, he's got
All right.
a plan. Yeah, that's just really just the next step. I personally am looking forward to seeing it upgraded.
Yeah.
I do see the vehicles, you have a couple vehicles that have been parked there regularly. I saw you painted the front windows, the white, so you don't have to see what's soaped, yeah. Is that what it is? Is that what it's called? Soap. So are you've started doing anything in
Can't
there?
do anything until I get a building permit.
Okay.
Hold up.
Us?
Us?
Well, we just got it.
I hate when that happens. So, do they allow you to take all that bamboo down, or knotweed?
The knotweed is going to be dealt with in the fall more so. From what I've gotten for information, is something that has to go in a couple weeks before the frost in order to control the knotweed of any substantial. But in the meantime, they're gonna take most of that stuff out and clear that around the building.
I just went through this. Knotweed, when you take it out, you have to cut it after it blooms, and then nuke it with Roundup, they say. And then the second bloom, hit it again.
there's a process.
There's a process.
There is a
yeah.
process.
And I'm not the guy that's going to do it.
Yeah. There's a lot, there's
We're
a
going
lot
through it,
of
we're going,
invasive
we're going through it at, Perry Park.
Are you?
Yeah, yeah,
Perry
yeah.
Park's going through the whole process right
Yeah,
now,
there's some kind of chemical that they say needs to go on
a certain time of
2
year.
weeks before the first frost or whatever, and
Yep.
then it will turn around and the plant shut down. It takes it in through the leaves, down to the roots, and kills it at the root
Yep.
base.
And then there's another follow-up the
And then
following
there's
year.
another follow-up the following year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it awesome? I see the one that's growing out of the storm drain right out front of the same, right there. I get tempted every time to just stop and just rip it out.
Any disturbed land, you'll
Sickle
get it.
doesn't cut it, huh?
You disturb land, you're gonna get knotweed.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. But it's growing out of the,
Is it
from
some
the
soil?
edge of the
It's
storm
growing
drain,
down
right in front of the,
flower.
where your business is gonna be. I said, wow, stuff's brutal. So I see the grass area, you're clearing all that.
Yeah.
Gonna put some, remove the trees, shrubbery.
do the-
That's all conservation stuff, you gotta get approval for the
I get
conservation.
Approval from conservation. We're not doing anything other than trying to get some open space around the building, put some low-maintenance grass seed in there from their recommendation.
Yep.
I've talked to Bill Dunn on the landscaping end of it, how to take care of that. So,
You gonna reactivate the old boat ramp going down there?
what's that?
The old boat ramp that used to go through there?
What is it, a 20-foot drop now? Just drop the boat in?
You guys have given me so much hard time on parking and everything else, and you're talking about a boat ramp?
No, I'm just saying.
He's talking
Curiosity.
about
I wanna
it.
see what it is.
So Bob, do they
It's a
issue,
historic type.
do they
site.
issue the curb cut yet?
There
Did
is no
they-
curb cut.
The DOT did not require.
That
Oh, really?
surprised
They
me.
didn't-
We thought that they would
We
need
thought
it.
they were gonna say,
And they
pull the fence.
They didn't.
yeah,
So what did
pull
they
the
decide
curb
on the
out.
traffic flow stuff? Anything?
There's no problem with the traffic flow.
You just have to,
We
you just have to
can't-
line it. You just have to line it, I think is what it was, is some
Yeah,
lining that has to be
yeah,
done.
the line. I got-
Very basic.
I've got
Line
a
and
little
sign.
bit of,
Line and sign.
lawn in front of the post office.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 18 inches wide, that goes over to a control joint in the concrete.
Yeah.
And from that concrete control joint up diagonally to the edge of the handicap ramp.
Yeah.
We've got to remove that and put some kind of paved surface there, and then put a line down the middle to show that this is an 11-foot lane and this is an 11-foot lane.
Right.
Everything
Okay.
going out of there.
Yeah.
Did they
So-
take any responsibility for putting that giant, metal guardrail in the way?
That's what I was talking about.
Nobody
Yeah.
takes responsibility.
So what's procedurally, is anyone waiting on us to do anything?
Well, it just gotta submit the documentation and then we approve
So,
it.
so we're not behind on anything
No.
procedurally?
No,
right
no,
now?
not at all.
Okay, right. This is,
Yep.
if the ball is in our court, we want to handle it.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah, that was it. On that, so, okay,
okay.
we got it.
Okay.
Do you have a time frame? Any idea?
Well, first of all, I need to get a building permit. I couldn't get the building permit because they flagged me on 3 of these things that I had hand delivered, and they didn't seem to make it into a jacket.
Okay.
So then I sent them electronically, they seemed to get here,
Good.
and we got it from you guys.
Good.
So it's basically just trying to get through the process.
Do we have to motion or anything, or?
Motion accepted it, but that's it. We've already got it, and then it's just gonna get on the agenda, and we accept the plan as it is, and
Yep.
that's it. As the DOT, we just incorporate it into our decision, that's all.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
There you go.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for being patient. We appreciate it.
Good luck. Looking forward to the upgrade. Looking forward to the upgrade.
Luck has nothing to do with it.
You make your own luck,
Agree with
right?
that.
Okay. Next up, Community Preservation Committee appointment. Appointment member to the Community Preservation Committee for a term of 3 years.
I move to reappoint DJ McNulty in that capacity.
I second that.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thanks, Patrick.
Of course.
All right, now we will go back up top. Reorganization of the board. That would mean we have two open positions, one for chair and one for vice chair.
Move to reappoint DJ McNulty for chair of the planning board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Any discussion?
Do you want it?
Yeah, fair point.
Accept.
Not allowed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. All right. All right. Chair. Vice Chair.
I'll move to nominate Chris Goodwin as vice chair.
I was gonna nominate you.
I'll second that.
Chris is already, hold on a minute, Chris is already the chair of
Zoning.
zoning.
Yeah.
I like the vice chair slot. I know my schedule's been tight lately because of world events, but that's gonna open up.
Last year you said if you missed three meetings that you would resign from that spot, and you maybe made 5 meetings in the
What do you
year.
wanna make me, town, board historian?
No, no, just member, like,
Yeah.
yeah, member.
Oh, that's not a bad title.
Which one?
Board Historian.
Historian?
If you like to be the historian, that's okay too.
Keeper of the records?
That's
The gatekeeper?
Fine.
All right, I'll make a motion to nominate Patrick as vice chair.
I second that.
Ugh.
We're gonna vote too.
Do you want it?
Yes.
I will take it, if I'm elected to pour it.
If you're comfortable.
I can be comfortable, especially if you're chair.
Would you like a couch?
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Do we want to make it official? Can we make it a board historian, or is that an internal thing?
Well, you can be the board historian.
That's fine,
I nominate
Always the
Wally.
board historian.
that's
Board
fine.
historian or
Board historian.
keeper
That's-
of the
I like it.
constitutional
I
memory?
like it.
Hey, that's helpful and good.
So,
All right. Good there. Any other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of the posting?
Uh,
I do have questions, but I don't know if you want them live? on
Yeah.
that, Or, so, Katie Lane, the normal procedure for acceptance of a way is they petition with a fee to the town. Comes through the board, we approve it. I saw the back and forth, I threw a bunch of emails out. But usually that happens after the subdivision is complete, with all the homes in, the as-built, the pavement's down for a while, and the drainage has a chance to go and take a look at it to see if there's any other issues. Right now, it looks like there's 3 additional homes to be put in there. One is under construction now, I think, and there's 2 others that are gonna be going in there with cement trucks, et cetera. So the reason for that, and this has been forever in the town of Groveland, is that we want to basically have a brand-new street with everything is operating as best that we can, so that when we take it over, because we own it, okay, at that point. And then there's a maintenance bond that goes up, particularly on these, if there was a fence involved out there, and with these new drainage areas, there's a lot of them up there. Okay, just to make sure they're operating and to clear the silt out and stuff like that, so they would just go back in. And that's typically for about 2 or 3 years, just to get them all settled out. And then, that's released. And then, once the houses are complete, the street's done, then the fee, the acceptance plan is submitted to the board to go to the town. Somehow, this got over to town meeting and was accepted at town meeting prior to completion of the subdivision. My only fear, okay, with that, was that is during the construction, because if you look where those 2 lots are, there's gonna be a lot of truck traffic going in and out, and it could damage the road. Now, we normally have a maintenance bond in place for the drainage and the cutting of the grass in that pit area and everything like that. That's only for a short period of time. When you guys released that and approved it, did you set a number to include possible damage to the roadway if indeed it just happens by accident? You know, we get big trucks going in and out and backhoes and everything else.
Curbing.
Curbing is granite, stuff like that. Did you guys put that in place?
I honestly can't recall when
Okay.
we had that conversation.
Okay.
But it was a while ago.
It's been a long time,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
know that we
Sure.
had TEC came in and,
Right.
you know, they do their due diligence to say, is this road acceptable? Should we accept the road?
Right.
There were
Um,
numerous discussions
and-
with Rebecca and Annie about the status of how things were going and what requirements were,
Yeah, unfortunately, neither of those guys were here for the last, group, but, so the only problem that I have, and you can't undo it at this point, okay, but just for future reference, guys, we can't accept a street. I mean, they can submit all the stuff, the as-bills can be done, all that stuff, but you can't accept the application to send it off to town meeting till it's 100%, okay? All the houses built, the roads
the
done, the
as-bills,
curbing
the
in, and
as-bills
everything
in.
like that, because we're accepting a brand-new road as is, okay? They could, and if we don't have enough money or it's not a cash bond, it could get damaged by Joe Blow. Guy just went over the curb with a, 40,000-pound truck and damages something, and we've seen it.
Well,
Okay.
more so, Wally, if I could just jump in and, did they submit the as-built for that road?
Yeah.
That's gonna be,
Was that all reviewed by
Yeah,
TEC?
yeah,
That would be
yeah.
my biggest worry.
Yeah, the as-built
Well, we've seen
and all
roads
those
that like
buildings.
missed by 8 feet.
well, we saw the fire hydrant down on Sunset, remember? It ended up in somebody's driveway. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
they had everything up to snuff. and
good.
Yeah.
So that's
why.
okay. So, and they can submit it and have it ready to rock and roll, but
Right.
until the last house is signed off on and everybody, all the trucks are out of there, and I'm not saying painters, okay, but you gotta have all the heavy stuff out of there. Okay, and somehow that didn't happen. So I hope, one item we gotta review is what is that bond? And what's it in place? And what is it gonna be covering? And if not, it's gonna be one of those things, and we had to do it once, where and I might have been on Sunset, where somebody did some damage out there, and they went after the contractor's insurance to fix it, and they just fixed it. But I don't wanna accept any roads that in the town, and it starts having problems in 2 years, because it was damaged.
Right, so when we're going through procedural things,
Yeah,
like, so, I mean, DJ said it, and I feel very strongly about it too. Like, we gotta have chapter and verse when we say, okay, this is what we said, this is why we said it, this is the procedure, right? So if we're missing a procedural point, there's either a bylaw that says it's gotta be, or there's something.
Yeah.
That
It
we,
usually came from the road
So, and if we miss something,
It was-
someone should reach it, like,
Yeah.
if someone knows that we missed, like, come
We
let us
used to-
know.
He's right, Wally's right, because we used to have a road commissioner, Bob Kelly, would
Right.
approve the road
right,
before it got accepted.
right,
And that was always the procedure of a subdivision.
right. And
Road
that's,
commissioner would go up there, make sure everything was up to snuff.
So maybe what we need to do is set an agenda item to talk about the procedure for accepting roads and make sure that we agree that this is the checklist and this is the ordering and these are the.
there is one.
It's
There
actually
is
what
one
my-
of yesterday, or
that's
that
what
we
my-
actually
Well,
had, yeah.
well,
was
then,
what actually
then
my point
perhaps
was.
we need to
I wrote-
update it because, bylaws change, the rules change and whatnot. Make sure that
Did the
we're
road-
tight on it.
Did the road commissioner sign up,
We don't really have a road commissioner, do we?
So that's what so that's my follow-up,
Yeah.
is the road commissioner is our town engineer, now considered the road commissioner, Arthur Marcos.
Well, who
I don't
does-
know if
who
he's
does all
taking
fill in
that
all the
role,
potholes?
taking that role.
Yeah,
I
'cause
gotta
that's-
find out the bond,
Because they have to
I gotta
sign
find
up
out the
too.
bond,
No, 100%.
and then I wanna see that checklist, like,
Yeah.
I know, we all know how hard Rebecca and Annie work on a lot of these things, and I'm sure, I feel pretty confident, I'm not sure, I'm confident that they looked at the checklist to make sure everything,
And
before we
cross
get
the Ts
any
and
type of
dotted Is, so
due
Well, I
that
don't
we are
know that,
officially okay.
but-
We're not saying,
they-
we're not disputing that.
No,
It's just-
correct, I know.
There was, on that Katy Lane, there was a lot of issues with, like, remember Bradbury was in here? Ted Bradbury. There were ponds, rain gardens. I'm sure TEC walked it to make sure those were operating. And the other thing that you look at, if those houses that are being built right now have rain gardens, drainage ponds, stormwater management on it, perimeters have to be in place to see that they were done correctly.
Right,
So again,
Yep.
so a homestead doesn't happen.
correct.
Well, that's the as-built stuff though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but you gotta think about it. So all those catch basins right now have the yellow silt on them.
They have a
These are
silt
catch
on 'em,
basin.
yeah.
Okay,
Or
well,
sod.
that's good, but if a truck misses a dump
No, sure.
with 3 yards, it's going right into the system, and that's where the bond comes in to clean it up. But we wouldn't have that, because they would have to assure that everything was operating before they handed it off to the town, because we're on the hook for this right now.
We're not saying that they did anything wrong.
No,
We're
no,
just
no,
saying,
just normal-
as a board, and
No, right.
procedurals.
Yeah,
we
this
just-
is a
we
learning
just told
process.
them that-
No,
It's a learning process
No,
for us.
100%. And what we just told the town is that we're trying to be belt and suspenders and doing things, in
Right.
a way that, when you look back, you can check back and say, check, check, check. And it's
It-
the same, it's the same for this neighbor as it is for that neighbor, and for this part of Groveland as for that part of Groveland, wherever you are.
Setting
One of the
precedents.
things
Yeah.
that you gotta keep in your sights at all times is that we don't work for developers at all,
No.
period.
We work for
We
the town.
work
It couldn't be clearer.
We work for the citizens of Groveland, we listen to them, okay, that's who we work for, we're elected officials, we work for them. And I remind the Board of Selectmen of this every opportunity I get at a town meeting. Okay, remember who you work for. Okay, so developers will try, and it doesn't matter who it is, will try to rush, they'll try to take a shortcut, and maybe they're just so busy they forget steps, or it's not really spelled out.
Well, even in my short time on the board, I've seen different developers with different, hacks. And some are more, some are trying to squeeze by, and then, then you're holding them to task. And some of them are trying to be collaborative and work with you, and you're not trying to gum up the works for the people that are doing a good job. And so, it's, all these meetings are recorded, so you can see this going on, and you can tell who's a good developer and who's, who we gotta be a little more wary about. But yeah, same process, same rules, make sure that, make sure we do things. And so if what you're saying is, hey, I wanna make sure that we're doing everything, belt and suspenders, I'm 100% on board, and let's get the checklist.
And there is one for a lot of them, and we found out that the checklist, when we do these subdivisions, okay, there was a menu list that was absent. And I don't know how it got absent, I wrote it, and it was there for a reason, that get passed out to all the board members in each of the items. And when a new subdivision came in that was a little different, there were certain particulars that went with that, so we included that into the menu item. So all you had to do is circle it, because and then it became part of the memorandum of decision. This buffer zone stuff was also in there, and includes everything right down to sidewalks and street signs. And then the list, it's like 30 to 40 items now.
So to that point, DJ, you're gonna take a look and sort of give us, so this can be an agenda item to sort of review the.
Discussion,
Yeah,
further
it'll be an
discussion.
argument.
But
I think it's a great.
I'd also, because I know how well you can remember zoning or bylaws. Do you have any of that? Do you have any
Yeah,
of that?
we
Do you have any of
do.
that stuff?
I have
that
a
you can
lot of
send?
that stuff, and because I wrote it, and I have it, a lot of it's still on my
So can you
computer
send,
that I
can
can
you
find.
send it to me?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
But we should probably, I don't know if we have to do a checklist, but it should be an agreed upon for every single subdivision.
That's why it was in the menu.
You have to,
Yeah.
you
It's a
have to
procedure.
hit these milestones.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all these have to be complete.
It's in the planning board files that we had, and in the back of the old books, there's actually a whole procedure that's written out on how to submit the documentation for street acceptance. And
Right.
And it
And what
says,
I would say is, that's great and amazing, and let's just make sure it marries with how, because if that was 20 years ago.
No, it wasn't even that long.
Whatever it
Yeah.
was,
If
like,
it
just make
meets
sure
our
it's good, it's
meets
up
our
to date,
bylaws
it's
statement.
up to date,
Yeah.
meets our now bylaws,
Yeah.
like, so
You gotta
100%.
You gotta update.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Okay, and
Yeah,
one of the biggest things you guys gotta remember too, is the subdivision control law is a living document.
Yeah.
Okay, when I wrote that with my fellow board members, and we submitted it to the to the state to record it, first of all, they didn't know what it was, and it was the first set of subdivision regulations submitted in 35 years. They actually had to call Boston to figure out what to do with it. But I thought it was bulletproof and the greatest piece of legislation that the town ever put out. It wasn't a year before somebody found a hole in it, okay, and
Well-
decided to do something, and so we had to go back in and redo it. So if things are coming up,
Yeah, no,
we
the,
just reiterate them and put them back in.
the board, I think the membership of this board is pretty consistent in the concept of, hey, listen, we're getting up to speed. No matter where we were, we always want to be better. We always want to be more buttoned up so that everybody in Groveland knows they're getting the same fair shake. And so, yeah, 100%, let's do it.
If I always said it, if it meets the regulation, it flies. It's black and white, it meets the reg, and you were on it earlier.
Yeah.
You don't have greenhouses one day and blue houses the next day. It's, if it meets the reg, it flies. If it's bad, we change the reg.
Right.
Okay, and that's what we've been doing over the whole 30-plus years I've been here. We found holes in the regulations and do it.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to point out about Katie Lane, and you didn't, those that were there that walked it or see it, what I was trying to put out, there's a reason why we put that 750 limit in there on the street. We beat that up for years, complete with Camet Engineering and everything, and just drafting out subdivisions. And you're gonna see on that subdivision in particular, right at the end of that cul-de-sac, that is a very tight turn, and that's why I said what they should have done was pull that back right to the 750 marker, okay, on the road length, not increase it to 900 feet, and you're gonna see why. It looks like crap
Well,
at the end.
there was a
of it.
betterment to the town, right? Because they put all that water in, the hydrants.
I
and
think they would have had to
everything
do it anyway, and I understand that. There's a trade-off in there.
There
but
was
there's
a trade-off
still-
with that.
I think there still could have done something, but
else.
right
But
now
there's
we
also,
have.
gotta remember, I'll play devil's advocate with you.
Yeah.
That isn't going to be the only 750-foot road because there's been precedent set.
Right.
I believe Billis Way is over 750 feet. So you've got new subdivisions, and we can't just.
Billis Way is kind of a, you're right, it's a
Doesn't
little bit
matter, so
different, yeah.
you can't, unless you redo that reg, and unless it's a bylaw, unless it gets revoted in, if precedents have been set.
Yeah.
You can't just say
But-
750 is the cutoff.
But,
Because then all of a sudden you look arbitrary.
well, yeah, but you're not arbitrary because it's individual and all the good land is gone in Groveland, so it's not straight farmland anymore. So every subdivision's a challenge and has the merits of the subdivision have to carry on its own.
And what about the developer that actually has enough land that says, we don't need 750 because we're gonna have a go-around, we're gonna have a horseshoe?
Well, that's the max length, that's not the, has
If
to
you have
be
a
that way.
horseshoe, you can go 1,500.
Okay, well, I mean,
If you would, yeah, that's right, because you have a second way out. That's the
Correct.
reason why. Okay, because the 750 foot was dead end. Okay, and that's what it is, dead end, dead end, dead end. You know, you get Rocky 1, 2, and 3, that's a mile of roadway with no way out. The emergency way out is through, under the power lines. That's what was approved there to go out and out of there. Because if something came down and blocked off the second half, you can't get in.
Yeah, but
the
you
horseshoe, have
could,
another
something
way.
should block off something at the entry of the road.
Oh, sure,
I mean, that's.
sure, it does, you're right, you can't get in anywhere. You're
Right.
right, so, but that's why that's.
no, this
that
is
reg
all,
was-
this is all helpful discussion.
to put in. There's reasons for the stuff that we did to correct some of the things that were done long before I got on.
Sure.
Because and in the old days, a lot of stuff was done because gentlemen were gentlemen and they had a handshake, and we
Yeah.
said, if you're gonna do it, you do it. And I'll put a plug in for, you know, God bless the soul, Larry Kelly. He put a lot of stuff in, and he himself would recognize that, you know, that didn't work out so well, okay? And he would go back in, and we asked him to do like, plant 2 trees that died, or put in a little bit of riprap. He would go in there for a week.
Yeah.
He replanted everything, he put all the riprap in, and he did it himself. Well, there's very few of those gentlemen still around.
Well, as of
Unfortunately,
June,
so
as
that's
of
why we
June
have a
20
regulation.
as of June 17, 2025, you know, we're not gonna be trusting people to honor
No.
gentlemen's agreements.
That's
I've
why you
seen-
gotta-
I've seen folks that, you know, I would certainly not trust a gentleman's agreement with,
That's why
come
we have
before the board.
subdivision
So
control.
we have a, you know, we have a rule book, and we're gonna enforce it, and we're gonna modify it when we can to make it better
Yeah,
fit, you know,
so
the
I'll-
town, and
I'll put this on as an agenda item
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
further discussion once
Yeah.
we get
Oh,
some.
yeah.
some
I think
more,
don't mean
that's a
hold
good
anybody
idea.
up
Yeah,
on that.
But I agree, Patrick, I agree with you. I mean, with the way that developers are nowadays, the fact, what stood out to me is, and like I said, this 181R is my first subdivision I'm being part of, but
And that's crazy.
it is, right? But
It's crazy.
when we had a town meeting, there was a resident who stood up and said, could we please never use this developer again?
yeah.
That just speaks volumes, like I had that miserable
one
of a
was that?
time, like, what's that?
Who was that, which one was that?
I think it was Billis Way.
Oh, well.
Right, so I think it was just like, can we please, we've had numerous times where this person has not been
You know
well.
how I feel if you have. a-
So-
And the
I'd
board
send them
can't
away.
make those decisions is something that the good folks of Groveland should know. This is not, we don't get to steer, you know, projects to people we like and people we don't. That's,
But
you
we
know,
know-
not permitted.
We know the problem children, right?
Right.
If someone comes in and we know we have to be more stringent because they have past practice of.
Well, it's the same,
poor-
it's the same rules. And again, the people who are trying to slide one by don't tend to follow those rules, and that sort of takes care of itself usually.
So, but I'll
yeah.
put another agenda item on for when we can all be here and have a discussion, get some more info around the Katy Lane stuff.
Yeah.
And, we can talk about it further.
Thanks, guys.
You got anything else?
With that, does anyone else have anything for
Oh,
updates or?
did I mention you?
No,
On-
I can't be in here,
Oh, wanna leave?
yeah.
We got one thing. I just wanna, ask a question.
I gotta recuse myself.
Okay.
No.
Well, I mean, is this something that should be an agenda item?
No, it's just a quick question.
Okay.
No. So, on minor and major modifications to subdivisions, special permits, et cetera, the typical procedure is, it comes before the board, and if it's an ongoing subdivision, and like, we just did it down on Estes, okay?
SD
We
Park,
talked
yeah.
about that, Estes Park.
Yeah.
Okay, and that one's been dormant for a little while, okay?
Yeah.
He withdrew.
Oh, he withdrew?
He withdrew,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so, but if you're gonna things that are active, and they're under the planning board's domain, and there's a change, whether it's a building, a road, a drain, or something like that, okay, the applicant comes in and petitions the board. and their engineer will make the pitch, okay? And if we've got an active site going with an active special permit underway, and this thing hasn't been buttoned up anywhere for a long time, you would pitch that, typically it's a minor modification to the existing plan, and everything is still going on. So the site inspections are still going on, the bond's still in place, everything that's going in. That's fairly typical, unless we're gonna add 3 more roads that are gonna go that way, and we're gonna do this and it's gonna go that way, and then we're gonna put 2 more skyscrapers in. Well, gosh, that's a major modification to the original plan that you're doing.
Well, certainly like, those flag posts are easy to develop, but what
Right.
about when you start moving to the middle of,
Well, you still gotta do
like-
the engineering stuff. You can't just say, oh, I'm gonna throw up another building. No, you still submit it. But the board, the vote to decide whether it's a major or minor modification comes before the board, and we have to listen to the pitch of what they're doing, and then you look at encompassing of the giant project. Is it 5% of the project? Are you putting 500 more feet of road in and stuff like that? Well, no, that's a major modification to the plan, and you're gonna have to submit a bunch of stuff. You still have to submit what you're doing. You still have to submit it for review.
Yep.
Okay, but it's the board, the elected officials, that make that decision, nowhere else. So I don't know if some of this stuff snuck by, because when I see some of the things that come through, and the street acceptance was one of them, I'm scratching my head a little bit, because it seems like it didn't go to the board, and someone made a decision prior to it, and it's the board that, the chain of command I've always wrestled with lately, not with board members, but someone else, not an elected official of the board that doesn't live in town, that does other stuff, is making decisions for this board, and it's gotta stop, and I have called it and flagged it a bunch. So the board makes the decisions, and those are the people that work for the board, including this new engineer guy, or the planning person that may be coming on that you're talking about.
Planner, the town
Okay,
planner.
The planning
well, guess
board.
what? They work for the planning board.
Correct.
They are below us in the chain of command.
Correct.
This is a unified elected board. Okay, so that has to hold place. So if there are decisions to whether major or minor modifications come in, it comes before this board. We look at it, and we 5 or 6, whatever we got. Okay, we'll make that determination, not anybody else, before it gets here, because we don't see it. So someone is making decisions outside and saying, oh, well, that's a major modification, before we ever see it. And it's like, well, no, it's not, because of this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So,
And again,
Well-
and this falls in as kind of the same thing. Again, it's like, let's lock down procedures and make sure that we're clear about, like, okay,
Well,
this
it-
is the
it
order
is-
for how this gets handled. It goes through here,
that's
here,
not
here, and this
procedure,
one.
that is authority. A person outside this board has no authority to make decisions for the board unless the board delegated that authority and said, we voted yes, go do that, okay? And it's happened a bunch, and I have been very strict on this. Brad was probably doing the same thing when stuff was getting out of control. It's like, no, who said that? So let's pull that in, but when it comes to major, minor modifications, the board makes that decision. And
So
it's based on the presentation
what,
coming down.
now, when we get a town planner,
Right.
right, that comes before us, and they understand our bylaws and what things
still work for
need
the
to be
planning
done.
board.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but their job is to make recommendations
they
based
make
on,
a recommendation.
based on what they see. Here's my,
They were to-
here's my, my pitch, this is why.
Right, got that.
They don't have an
That's
vested
okay.
interest.
That's okay, but
Right.
they didn't make the
Developer-
final decision.
No, of
for it.
course.
But if a developer comes in and says, hey, we want to make these modifications, and we feel as though it's minor modifications, and the town planner says, yep, it is, I agree, because we have a set criteria.
Right.
Does the town planner have that ability? Do they have to bring it? They would most likely bring it to our attention anyway.
I think,
But-
You
I
have
think
to-
Wally's
you have
point,
to have a
I think
vote.
Wally's point is fair. I mean, if we're the vote, then,
Yeah.
a recommendation is a recommendation. And I mean, if it's
we're the
well-founded,
government.
we're not supposed
And
to
if a
just.
town planner says, nope, this is not a minor modification, I think it's a major modification, it needs to go in front of the planning board,
Right.
then that's.
Well, no,
so-
it goes to the
so
board either
both-
way.
Both of them, regardless whether
remember
it's
the-
minor or major, has to come before
Anyone
us.
else other than the board are advisors to the board that are under us, and
Yep.
that's how the chain of command goes. It goes up, we're the top of the food chain, and everybody else is down, as far as planning
But
goes.
what do we say when we're looking at these people that are, giving us recommendations? We say, give us your proof. We look at the proof. We say, oh, I see. This is the bylaw. It says exactly what you said it says. I'm good with that. You know what I mean? That's different than, somebody
You're
who.
talking a black and white issue, coming in, but when you have a major, you know, we work again for the citizens of Groveland coming in, and there are things that have happened, like, one of the things that we put through right away was the as-built, the by right for was 750 feet, but now it's 900 feet, for the in-law apartments. We had people that want to get their in-laws in there, and they had to go through this zoning runaround that was taking them so long, and some of them had, relatives that were so sick, they were just trying to get them in there for a while.
Well, the ADU is to solve that issue.
Yeah, well, but we didn't before, so that was one of them.
Yeah.
And we said, what the heck is going on? So it was the board that came in and completely rewrote that whole section and put it into the then building inspector. If it's under 900 square feet, it's a by right go.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So that kind of stuff.
No,
A black and white reg, you know,
Once we
street
have,
signs,
once
street
we
sign.
have the new town planner,
Yeah.
we
Have a meeting
we
and-
have that,
Yeah.
have a
It's
conversation.
kind
and
of
make
a
it-
different,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
different thing, but.
No, I get
But
what
it
you're
was just
saying.
gonna say that,
I think that, you know, and I know that Brad had stepped out because he has currently going.
issue on
through
this very
a minor versus major.
Right.
yeah, we've
And
seen it 3 times so far in the last couple of months, right? You said they withdrew the other one. And I
Esty-
just wanted to
Esty
make sure that, yeah.
Because
So-
we said it was a major.
Right.
He disagreed, so he
Right.
withdrew without prejudice.
Okay.
Is what
Oh,
happened.
okay, that's-
There was,
we can do that.
well, there was more than that. There was also an issue that the town administrator brought up that was helpful, that there was another non-compliance issue, and she pointed to where it was in the documents. We looked at it, we said, yes, there's this extra issue, come back to
Well, I
us,
think they had
come
a
back to us,
pavement.
and then they never came back,
Yeah,
and
that
then they
was a big-
withdrew.
That was a big issue with the pavement, the outside of the.
Right, so
The-
they
the
had
theme to
multiple
put it in.
issues, they were both flagged, we made, what is a very defensible ruling on it, and they never came back, so, I mean, that's a
But the board
situation
made
where
the
everything,
decision.
the board made the decision.
That's it,
Of
that's all I'm
course.
talking about.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
board made the decision.
100%, on the, yeah, exactly right,
And,
with,
and as far, it hasn't been put in front of us yet to make a decision for the Salem Street.
right.
Right, and then I know that's.
That's,
why
that's
I-
not,
and
that's not up for, that's, you're right, it's not.
That's
up
gonna
for
come,
vote.
that's gonna come in
think
front of
people
us, that's gonna
have-
come up in front
Are
of us as
thinking they
well.
made a decision on it.
No, they,
I
no,
just wanted to
no,
make
no,
sure.
no,
Okay,
I,
good.
no, they definitely did
No,
not.
that's-
The only determination that was made was, we're not saying that this is a minor,
Yeah,
so it needs to come in front of the board.
right, absolutely.
That's
It-
that's
but
all
it's
that's been,
always gotta come
it's
from the
always
board.
been, that's always been,
Which-
so, and that's the difference the knowledge that I'm learning now
Right,
is
right.
regardless whether it's the town planner, or whether it's Annie or Rebecca who have been helping us in that role.
Right.
They don't have, and I think when it comes to that, I think they meet with also Sam.
Right.
Right.
To make
But that's a different-
make their determination, do they think they feel as though it's a minor or a major?
Yeah, but that's,
Well, and-
Sam doesn't have anything in it either. If it's a special permit decision, if it's a planning board item of any sort of nature, the planning board has full authority in discussion on it. So, later it goes to Sam, because he's gotta issue the building permit on it. Okay, that's his ball of wax, he's got zoning, okay, and if they have to go to zoning to do something else too, fine, go do it. But, no one else but the planning board makes planning board decisions or rulings.
I don't think anyone on this board is suggesting that we're a rubber stamp for the town administrator.
No, I don't think that at all. What I'm thinking is that other departments might think that they trump the planning board as far as that goes, and that they are trying to supersede authority, and we've caught it a bunch of times. That street acceptance, somehow that got through.
Mr. Chair of the Select Board, do you guys think you have Trump power over the planning board over here?
Over
We
no
already
elected,
proved that one.
over no elected board.
Are you trying to assume duties that are not part of the
I
select board?
love that discussion. Let's bring that up at another meeting.
On that note, gentlemen, can I let Brad back in?
No, I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Motion to let Brad back in?
Yeah, that was quick. And then a motion to adjourn as soon as he gets here.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
next
So
meeting,
motion.
All right,
Yeah.
anyone want to second second
Yes.
that?
Second.
Brad,
Brad, come back.
you know
He's
you're
still here.
listening, we know
I'll
you're
come
listening right outside the door.
He was right here. He's got his cup right here.
He's taking notes.
There was a voice over
He went home.
He probably did.
There was a voice over there earlier.
Over there.
Unless you went
He made a
outside.
phone call.
Somebody's phone's here.
He didn't make a phone call.
Yeah.
He left his phone here, so he's gotta be here.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a mob outside.
All right. We just need one more thing and we have, next meeting. So,
Is Is it okay to push to the second week of July?
Yeah, don't.
Yeah,
definitely not
we don't want to
the
do
4th of July
we don't do
week.
4th of July week.
Yeah,
We'll schedule it for the 8th pending, and we'll see what we have
Yeah.
for agenda items. I know we have to do, we can talk about, Katie Lane's one of them, if we have the stuff that we need. We could, then I can reach out to, it's not Homestead Lane, it's 25 Cannon Hill. Cannon Hill as well, if everything's up to snuff, if we have all the data that we need to have a conversation. It could be just a conversation just with me, with them, and figuring out what's going on.
Okay.
As well, so, but I'll
caution-
bring it to us.
I'm gonna caution the board, enforcement is gonna be
Understood.
I think it has to go
almost
voluntarily,
impossible.
because we're out there on a lot of things, but, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out. And I'll
So-
I'm
call
saying
Mark
on
in a
a,
minute.
on a
So next meeting,
subdivision that's already been,
No, I get it, I've been through this already.
so next meeting, July 8th at 7 PM here.
All right, sounds good.
and then,
22 or just 8?
Whoever signed those plans.
I wasn't on the board. Lee.
Whoever was on the planning board at the time, those are the people.
Whoa, whoa. We're almost done.
all right,
Is that it?
yep, that is
Motion
it.
adjourned.
Seconded.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn at 8:21. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you, Groveland. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.